Anyway, welcome, Cindy. And Cindy has been taking T-Tapp classes with me for a while. I don't know exactly how long, but a while. And she had mentioned to me in the beginning that she actually works with a program called Brain Gym. And as soon as I heard Brain Gym, I was like really excited about that. I'd actually known a teeny tiny little bit about it, but what I know is that it really works to help the brain. That's about all I know. So I was so excited when Cindy finally had a little bit of time to come and share some information with us about Brain Gym. So Cindy, welcome, welcome, welcome. Share with me right off. Tell me what your official Brain Gym title is.
Well, my official title is I'm an international faculty member for the Educational Kinesiology Foundation, which is an international organization in over 80 countries.
Phenomenal. Now, girls, now you see why I wasn't about to try and say all that. So impressive, and I didn't want to mess it up. So, Cindy, number one, tell me your story. How did you get into Brain Gym? What was the deal?
Well, I was running a Montessori school for preschoolers, and I had a couple of boys in my classroom that just would fall off their chair and look around like, who did that? How did I lose track of where I was? And I didn't know what else to do with them. And a parent went to a little 2-hour introduction to Brain Gym. And she came back and handed me the handouts and said, I think you'd really like this. So I went on and took one class and brought it back into my Montessori school and saw huge results. And so I kept taking classes as they came to Minnesota, because at that point in time, I had a newborn at home and a 2-year-old of my own, so I wasn't interested in traveling.
I can certainly understand that. Wow, so that's fascinating. As a matter of fact, just as a quick aside note, my daughter actually went to a Montessori school for first grade, so I love the whole idea of Montessori. I didn't realize that. All right, so share with me. Can you give me just a quick down and dirty, what is Brain Gym? What does it help? What does it do?
Yeah, it's at its most very basic level. Brain Gym is movements that you do with your body to help optimize your brain. So whether that means that your brain maybe needs to slow down to increase focus, or maybe you want your brain to be more alert. Maybe it's too sleepy and too slowed down and you want it to wake up. So it's at its very simplest, it's 26 movements that are like micro interventions. They each take 30 seconds to a minute. As it gets more advanced, we also invite the brain into the equation and we set goals of, if someone comes to see me, why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of this? So that the brain is engaged and knows, why is the body moving in this way?
Wow, that's amazing. So what attracted you from that to T-Tapp? Did you see a correlation?
Well, I did. I was looking for a way to help myself as I'm in my 40s and I'm not good at going somewhere else to work out. And so I had bought the whole T-Tapp program and was doing the videos, but I was having trouble keeping up and figuring out exactly how to activate specific muscle groups in the speed that the videos were going. And I'm really big on Facebook, and you're really big on Facebook, and so our paths crossed, and the rest is history, because when I'm working out with you, I can slow down enough to find the specific muscles.
That is so exciting. One of the things that I had always thought about with Brain Gym was that it was for children. Brain Gym, it just kind of, and the little things that I see always just look like it's for kids. But share with me what you're saying. Who is Brain Gym for? What would be the target audience?
Well, each instructor kind of has to pick their own niche and their own target audience. Because my master's degree is in early childhood, that is my target. But yet I'm using this every day for myself, and my parents use this. And so this is for the entire life cycle. We all have a brain and we all have a body. And so as long as those two are living, it's important to be moving.
Wow, well, you know that I agree with that. Phenomenal. Can you give me a couple more kind of principles about Brain Gym? What else does it teach us?
It really, to me, it teaches us how to honor the individual and how we are not cookie cutters. We're not created out of a mold. And so while you may have really strong abs, I may have really strong some other part of my body. You may know how to breathe naturally, and I may have to work on it because of something that happened to each of us previously in our lives. Everything that happens to us back here in our past makes us who we are today. And so that individuality really aligned with Montessori and speaks to me as I'm a parent of 3 teenagers now and, have aging parents, that I'm able to recognize that just because my mother-in-law and my mother are the same age doesn't mean that they have the same abilities.
That is beautiful. So the whole idea also of muscle memory, right? So when we have traumatic things, the body takes care of it, defends itself, takes care of itself in very specific ways, each individual to us, correct? So in some places we tense, in other places we don't, and that's over time, our stress response. Do I have that right?
You do. That's huge. And in fact, you don't even know this yet, but I had gotten hurt and hurt my hamstrings a few years ago playing softball. And then through my time with you, with T-Tapp and using some of the fascia blaster to loosen up some of the tight fascia, my hamstrings finally felt normal last year. And then I fell getting out of the truck in January. My running boards were icy, and so I slipped and grabbed the door handle and did a swing around.
Oh.
And my legs have hurt ever since then, so for 5 months. So it is that muscle memory that my body felt that falling sensation and went right back into protection of tightness, which, if this is like a midline, tightness pulls you back behind it. And that affects your ability to focus and attend and participate in life.
Wow. So it sounds to me, that is so interesting. Yes. And so it does. It has its own mechanisms for protection. So on the one hand, while we get really angry, when we go back into a painful place, if we can soften, or this is my terms, if we can soften around that and really understand the message, and love the body back into a healing instead of getting mad and tightening around it, which is what I think so many of us do, especially when we have chronic kinds of pain and illness. At least I have. I got angry, I was resisting, and the more I got angry and resisted, I tightened, and then there was no energy moving through those places, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And so the idea of relaxing through the pain, which is one of the things I talk about in class, right? Getting to a place and relaxing, that the brain also has a way to reshape and do some new neuroconnections. Is that along the same philosophy as the Brain Gym?
That's really parallel to what we're talking about. And for me, this all just came up into my consciousness in the last couple of weeks, that I've been noticing how much my legs hurt, and then that's beginning to affect other body parts. And I just had that aha of, I slipped getting out of the truck 5 months ago. That's the same area of my body that hurt when I fell playing softball. And so I'm just starting to wrap my brain around that in the last couple of weeks. And you're right, embrace it. Thank my body for doing its job. And now that I've thanked it and I'm giving it gratitude, I'm ready to let go. And so to work a little bit more on, can I get those muscles to let go and be as good as they were last year? So it's very similar. And in Brain Gym, we call that drawing out of the individual. So, if you go to other therapies, they often will stamp in that they take your muscle and they manipulate it and they do things. And this work and what you do, because we're not in the room with you, is it's drawing out of the individual. And you'll say that on the videos all the time. Just breathe into that spot. Soften that waist. Can you slide it down? And so it's that same sort of philosophy of drawing out what someone's ready for. And you know when to not keep pushing and when to move on, that you can see when someone just goes into protection, like, I'm not doing that.
Right. So interesting. Way back when, I remember I had a few women that I'd worked with. And luckily I was doing some work with, I'm thinking of one in specific that had a lot of early life trauma. And probably it was sexual trauma. And those kinds of things get so locked up in our bodies, right? And of course, there is that tensing around it, that holding. So I love that word drawing out. I love that. But that tensing and that holding of that trauma. And I was still kind of early in my teaching practice. And so we would get to a certain place, a certain movement that would probably start to have that attention placed in those areas. And it was like, no, they weren't ready. It wasn't time. There was just so much more of a tightening around that. And it's taken me many years of working with people to realize, you stop there. If it's not right, it's not right. And it doesn't matter. We can go on and move to different places and just continue to, I'm just going to use this word. I'm not saying it in any woo-woo way. I'll use the word compassion. Mm-hmm. We have to be compassionate with our experiences and where we are, where our bodies are, and combining that brain-body focus. And when the body is ready to let go, it will tell you on it.
Yes, and that's what's so wonderful in my role as, someone that can facilitate techniques and processes with others to do that dance with them to see when they're ready and when they're not. And I just spent yesterday writing an article about remodeling my house this winter and what that was like. And I paralleled it to what we do in the brain gym field. How it's like we're remodeling and we're not changing this body at all. We're just remodeling some of the inner workings, some of those connections.
Wow, that's fascinating. There's so much wonderful work going on now with neurology, and we're understanding so much more about how the brain works and how it works with the body. Can you share with me just a few kind of wow, aha things that you found through science, et cetera, in your experience that you might be able to share?
Yes.
That's one thing. Statement, I know, but just a couple things to come to mind.
I know. I'm like, oh, which one?
One's right.
One that I think is really exciting is to look at, in talking about trauma, and in my work in early childhood, looking at toe walkers. So those little people, and some of us adults, that still walk around on our toes all the time, and it's hard to put our heels down. And so one thing that I have found fascinating to read about is the effect of tight muscles along the back of the body. So the lats, down the glutes, the hamstrings, and the calves, and to look at the effect of tightness on those muscles and how that impacts focus and participation.
Wow. So what's the toe walking about? Is it that it all tightens up so that everything all the way from the calf is tight?
Well, when I'm out teaching at universities and in different groups, I will invite people to tell me what the toe walking is about. So you're standing up. If you and I both stand on our tiptoes, even for just 10 seconds, and notice how's your ability to speak? Are you able to talk in complete sentences? Does your thinking change? Are you thinking with your brain or with your calves?
Oh, how interesting.
And so think about all those little people that are walking around, toe walking, and then we wonder why they're not paying attention. Well, it's because they're getting all the message from the body, and there's not room for their brain to come out of the brainstem where the physical messages are and come up into the thinking part of the brain.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So it really does start to show you that whole, when we talk about brain-body fitness, that is a much larger arena than probably any of us really even recognize, isn't it?
Well, and that's why I think when I start each day with you doing a T-Tapp workout, even when I usually have to leave after 30 minutes, I'm still feeling like I have just gifted myself by waking up all the different muscle groups in my body. And that tells me that then my brain and body aren't working anymore to have to wake them up. They've already been woken up, they've been stretched, they've been moved. And so then I can sit down and do my work and be much more efficient. Instead of sitting down and going, oh, but that hurts. Yeah, there's still a kink.
That's so interesting. I have a dear, dear friend who has ADD. She's suffered with it her whole life. I mean, just suffered, truly, and does whatever she can. I mean, she is vigilant about doing whatever she can to engage and focus. She's done a lot of different work. And when she found T-Tapp, she absolutely loved it. And she does the fast workout. I'll just call it doing it fast. She does it really fast. And I've watched her, and I would say, and I've said this to her, so when she listens, she'll laugh, she'll giggle. She does not do it, girls, with good form. This is not about perfect form and engagement of the lats or any of that. None of that, okay? I mean, I watch her sometimes and I'm like, what is she even doing? She's doing her version of it,
Mm-hmm.
but she swears by it that if she can do that fast 15 minutes, the rest of her day is so much more productive. That her brain works, it focuses, and I just am amazed. I sit in amazement with it because it just shows me again where people are like, yeah, but I'm not doing it right. I need to do it right. I got to do it right. I got to do it. And I'm like, no, just do it. Like, you might not get 3 sizes down in 2 weeks, but there is so much more going on with that. Would you have a way, or kind of how you would say that's helping her? What is it about the T-Tapp movement that would help her with her focus and productivity during the day?
Well, you just showed it in what you were doing. You just went like this. And so it's that using both sides of the brain. And so just the fact that we get moving, I'm paid to go out and talk to people about Brain Gym. And at the end of my workshops, I will tell them, if you can't remember anything I said about Brain Gym, I hope you walk away and you remember to move. It doesn't matter if you remember where the brain buttons are or how to cross crawl or what's a calf pump. None of that really matters. What matters is to get the body moving so that there's communication going on between the body and the brain. So, the one thing that we do in T-Tapp is what? It's the hold down.
Like this, I'm going to do hold downs or hold downs, right?
Hold down, any of the things where we get both sides of the body going. Or today you had us doing things where we were turning.
Right.
So the top half is going one way and the bottom half is going the other way. And we all know, and research has shown this for decades, that when we move one side of our body, the other side of our brain lights up. So once we get both sides going, even in just a brisk walk, where we've got one shoulder in the opposite hip, in that walk, both sides of the brain are lit up.
So that's probably one huge reason I'm thinking then, because I was thinking about walking, that same thing, how I'm always with this, that walking is so helpful for more than just burning calories or whatever. And I know for myself, when I'm stuck here at a computer, which, we all just hate, just sitting, that if I just get up and go for a brisk walk, it changes everything.
Yeah, and one of the beauties of the Brain Gym program is the selling point that we can say, we don't need a gymnasium. We don't need a street to go for a walk on. So we can do this in any weather because we only need the space that we take up. And so one of the movements that's most popular, I think, in Brain Gym is called a cross crawl, where we take one leg and the other arm and we bring them together. Cool. And we do it in one place. And so we do this in the T-Tapp walking workouts all the time, right?
Right.
And you can do that for 30 seconds.
And so, wow. So do you do that? Did you do that with your kids at Montessori? Is that one of the things when they started losing focus or whatever it is?
Yes, except to be able to stand on one foot and hold your balance, that is generally 4 years and up. And I had kids younger than that, so I would just have kids go back on the floor and crawl around. I would play music so that we were moving in rhythm and we were crawling. Because all we're doing here in this vertical cross crawl is the same thing that the baby did on the floor. Do you see if I went down? It's just crawling. Yeah. This is just the adult version.
I love that. And that's why I remember many moons ago when I had my daughter that there was a whole prevalent thought, philosophy, I don't even know who it was, that your children should crawl before they walk. That if you miss the crawling part, that there's a neurological part of the brain that gets missed in development. Do I have that kind of right?
Yeah, that's kind of right. we're really careful in our work to talk about correlations versus causation. So we talk about, there is a correlation between infants crawling and future reading. Now, that doesn't mean if someone skips crawling that they're never going to read. Because we stand up, we get vertical, and we do all sorts of things. We go to dance class, we might be in Tai Chi, we might play sports, we might go outside and climb trees, and we're getting the same experience or a similar experience with those activities. However, I feel like in today's world that so many children spend time in front of screens that they're missing that abundant physical experience before they are ready to start reading.
And so the movement and the play is so important. That's why I like to call it play, so that we don't have this contraction around moving, whatever it is, just go play. In the playing, you're moving, and the brain loves play, doesn't it? It loves, I call it that. It loves variety, it loves movement, I guess, right?
Well, you're exactly right. And I teach a course at the university called Alternative Methods of Early Childhood. And in that course, we talk about Montessori, but also Waldorf and Reggio, which are more play-based approaches. And it's just a connotation. And so even in your classes, when you are having us work, some people are more content thinking, I paid you, I'm paying you to get a workout.
Right.
And others feel much more freedom when you use the word play, because we all have these attachments to certain words.
Yeah, words are powerful. Words are powerful. So the other thing that I've always found as well has to do with that whole idea of the spine, brainstem down the spine, because the spine is that central nervous system. Mm-hmm. And where I call it transmissions, it might be a simplistic way, right, but all the way down and then innervating out. So is there something in Brain Gym as well that talks about, I don't know, the spine, keeping the spine flexible? Is there any of that along with that, just to keep the energetic flow?
Well, we have different movements that relate to the upper spine and the lower spine. And so, it's simple things like just touching your toes, which you do all the time in the workshops, in our workouts, that it's just reach down, just fold down. And, we put our hands on our calves, usually in your workout. But in Brain Gym, we will cross the ankles and then bend over. And not to touch the floor or touch the toes, because we can't all do that, but we just want to allow this lower back to relax. And that's the other thing, is we talk about how it takes up to 7 seconds for the muscles to get the message. And so this bouncing doesn't always help us relax. That's doing a different purpose. Right. But when you put us in different positions and then you talk and we're all dying, that's really good for us because our muscles are getting a message.
Wow, 7 seconds. That's so interesting. Well, you're going to start to see some of these things in class. We're going to roll down with our crossed ankles. That's very cool. And that helps to relax in that lower back.
Yeah, and we call that the gravity glider. And so you think of, you're just gliding down towards the earth. You're just, allowing just like you always invite us to allow our head to just let go. It's that same thing of letting go from the neck down.
Nice. Wow. It's so, I'll tell you what, this gets me so excited is that over time, because I've taught for so long, that things just, they just come through, it just happens. Things just kind of happen and they show up. And I just like that, oh wow, like some of these things that I can't really say I thought about or came up with, they just sort of happen. But that now there is the science and Brain Gym that's going, yeah, you know what, this is what's happening when you're doing that. I love that.
Well, it's really neat. And just to go back to your comment about the spine, there's a lot of other fields being developed in the last 10 years about reflexes. And there's so many reflexes that are spinal reflexes. So your spinal galant, your spinal parese, your tonic neck, symmetrical tonic, asymmetrical tonic. You have all these reflexes and they all relate to how development happens from the core out. So the proximal distal development of infants that relates to all of us every day of our lives. And so I guess Brain Gym does really deal with the spine. It's just not a real direct correlation other than the gravity glider is the first one that comes to my mind.
Right. Oh, Cindy, this is just so fabulous. I am just loving this. Anything else? Give me just one or two other things that you think would be of interest to the girls.
One thing that I find really powerful, and when we talk about trauma, is all of us encounter stress throughout our day. And we can't always prepare for it. We don't know it's coming. You know, I just had a graduation party Friday night, so I knew there was stress. And I could prepare for that and you know, show up and do my workouts and get my body and my brain ready. But then other things happen, like this thunderstorm out of nowhere, that, or, you know, different things go on that put me into a stressful place. So one of the best things that we can do for ourselves is find which tools support us. So for me, it's usually drinking water and then belly breathing. And my family can't stand it because I'm a loud breather when I'm stressed. So if I'm stressed, I often go, so,
just listening feels good to me. Okay.
so belly breathing, and then just one movement to teach you that you can take home with you is to cross your ankles. I know you can't see my ankles, but then put your thumbs down, cross, clap, down and up, and breathe.
Yeah.
And this puts everything on the midline, so it brings it all in. And when we're feeling stress, we often describe ourselves out here, that we're crawling the walls or we're stressed.
Right.
And so this is the opposite, that it brings it in. And it tends to really calm the nervous system down.
It so does, yes. And one of the little emotional techniques that I use, we call this the full body posture. Right, exactly. Everything crosses. And it's amazing. It just brings you right in.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. And I also love that you mentioned the water, because I do think that's really important. That's something I always have to work on, is that hydration.
And I do too. And I discovered that was it became one of my most favorite conflict resolution tools working with children. That if they weren't getting along or they were having trouble making choices, I would just invite them to get a sip of water. And that could change their thinking instantly.
How interesting. Now, is it the thought of doing it, the time out of doing it, or the actual hydration? Do you know?
I think it's all of it. Because to swallow requires coordination, which means you have to focus or you're going to drool and dribble.
Or choke.
Right, or choke. Or just to make that choice to stop what you're doing and go get the water changes your physical environment usually, unless you walk around with a bottle attached to you. And so it's all of those things. And it's the physical hydration. And one of the books I got out to show you was Smart Moves, Why Learning is Not All in Your Head. And this is written by a neurobiologist, and she has a whole chapter called Water and Oxygen. And she talks in here how water is the only liquid that counts as water. And so everything else is like a food, and it has to go in the gut to be digested, where water is immediately available.
How interesting. Love that. Oh, Cindy, such great stuff. Such great stuff. Will you give us one last thing? One last thing before we end? Give me one more.
Let's see. One more. How about, a lot of us live with other people in our world, maybe in our workplace or in our home, and there might be someone that you don't really love listening to. So what if you learned a movement that could help your listening?
Listening would be great. Yes.
So a really easy one is to just take your thumbs and put them behind your ears, put your fingers in front, and just rub your ears. Like you're unrolling them from the top down to the bottom.
I love this one.
And you just do that, like I like to do things 3 times. The first time is a preview. The second time is a review. And the third time, your brain and body go, oh yeah, I got that. I know what I'm doing. So there's an acupuncturist in Indonesia who has written an entire article about this and about the importance of the ears, not just for listening, but for your whole body. Just as like a little mini massage for the whole body by just rubbing your ears.
That is a fabulous one. Thank you for that. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, girls, I want to respect Cindy's time. We can tell that she's very busy, doing fabulous work. Oh, I have learned so much. I'm so excited about this. So I asked Cindy, what would be our next step if we want to keep going with this? And one of the things she is so kind to share with us, and I'm going to also put it right underneath here when I post this, but it's her website. You can email her, Cindy at, and it's I'm going to put it here, sorry, so I make sure I get it correct. It's Cindy at, and her website is IN with a dash, motionintelligence.com. So in-motionintelligence.com. You can email her, Cindy at her website. Go to her website because she has a fabulous free gift. Share, Cindy.
This winter I made a free 2-week boot camp, and so you'll get an email every day for 2 weeks when you sign up, and in that 2 weeks you'll learn 9 of the Brain Gym movements. And so they're short little 3-minute video clips teaching you how to do some brain gym to help yourself be able to think better, be more coordinated, improve balance, help you focus, all the things we're looking for.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. I can't wait when we get off. You know, you're going to see Renee at is going to show up. I want that ebook. That is so fabulous. And you know what else, girls? One of the things that Cindy shared with me, and I think you can tell as we're talking, that while she teaches early childhood children, which if any of you have children, grandchildren, any young people in your life, obviously any of these things would be so great. Get the ebook, work with them on it. But also for those of us who are a little older and for seniors, because gosh knows we've got to be working that brain as well. It helps, and you just mentioned that, right, for balance, etc. What other things is this going to help with, Sin, as we get a little bit older?
I think it's so important for just having confidence and awareness of where am I in space. Because if we're always looking down to see where's the next step, or is there an uneven sidewalk, or how do I use the stairs, we're more likely to fall, versus if we can keep our eyes looking up and out, that will help us. And so the way to be confident in our body is to know where it is. And movement is what really supports that.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that. I know even when I'm going out and walking, when we would teach walking, what do all of us do? I mean, walking is just what we do every day without even thinking about it. And we're all looking down, and just think about all the tension that puts on our necks, our shoulders. We roll forward, and where our focus goes is where we go. And typically that's down, right? So I used to say, trust me, there's no money on the ground you're going to find just so you can drop your eyes. So thank you for that. Wonderful. Yeah. Girls, go to her website, get those. Also, Cindy, would it be a good idea for them first go and get that, and then if they want more, if they really want more individual, to go to braingym.org?
Yes. Yes, there's an international website called braingym.org, and on there is a tab that you can search for instructors and for facilitators in every country around the world. And then in our country, in the United States, you can search by state. So you would go USA and then, North Dakota. And if no one pops up, then look at a neighboring state. And then you can reach out to those instructors and ask them if they're seeing clients or if they're teaching, because some of our instructors are full-time teachers in classrooms. Okay. And so they're listed on the website, but they're not actively out consulting or teaching this work. So you can always reach out and see what you find out. And I have worked for the foundation for 8 years in the past, and so I do know a lot of instructors. You can always write to me and say, I'm looking for someone in Arkansas, and I might know just the person for you.
Oh, how fabulous. Cindy, thank you. This was so great, and thank you so much for we finally got a time that we could get together and do this, because I just think it's so helpful, and I learned a ton. I can't wait to get my little ebook and my 2-week boot camp trip.
You are so welcome. I know this took a long time between remodeling and graduation. I just kept putting you off, but now the timing is perfect.
I love it. And by the way, congratulations on all those things. Wow.
Yeah.
Lots of great stuff. Glass of water and go have a fabulous day. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for inviting me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.